The soft chime of the communication panel echoed through Mila's chambers, disrupting her concentration. Glancing up from her botanical research, she sighed and activated the screen.
Mila.
Come to my study immediately. Her father's voice carried its usual authoritative tone before the connection abruptly ended. Brushing soil from her hands, Mila reluctantly complied. Counselor Stellaris never requested her presence, unless something significant had occurred, usually something she wouldn't. Like, she found her father standing by the panoramic window, overlooking the colony's central dome, his expression unreadable as he gazed at the terraformed landscape beyond. You've reached 27 without securing a proper alliance, he began without preamble. I've taken matters into my own hands. Mila felt her stomach tighten. What have you done? I've arranged your marriage to Zale Corvin. The name struck like a physical blow. The exile. Father, he was cast out before I even began secondary education. They say what they say, and what is true, rarely align, her father interrupted. Zale Corvin has built a trading empire in the outer systems. His ships navigate routes others cannot. His resources are valuable to us now, so I'm to be sold for trade routes. Mila's voice remained calm despite the anger surging through her. Years of political training had taught her to control visible emotion. You're to strengthen our family's position, her father corrected. The ceremony will take place next week. And do I have any say in this matter? Her father finally turned to face her. This isn't about what you want, Mila. It's about what the Stellaris name requires. 7 days later, Mila stood in the colony's Grand Assembly Hall, dressed in traditional binding robes with silver threading that caught the artificial light. Guests from prominent families filled the room, their whispers forming an undercurrent of speculation and barely disguised judgment. He's arrived, murmured Nessa. Her childhood friend and attendant Mila looked toward the entrance where a tall figure had appeared. Despite herself, her breath caught. Zale Corvin was not what she had expected. He moved with fluid grace, his features striking with high cheekbones and eyes of deep amber that seemed to glow against his bronzed skin. Subtle purple markings traced his temples and disappeared beneath his formal collar, evidence of his mixed heritage that had contributed to his previous ostracism as he approached. Mila noted the calculating assessment in his gaze. This was a man accustomed to evaluating assets, and she was clearly being measured as one. Stellaris, he greeted, his voice deeper than she anticipated. With a slight resonance that hinted at his non-human ancestry. Zale Corvin, she replied coolly. Or should I say, my unexpected future. A slight smile touched his lips. Unexpected for us both, it seems. You agreed to this arrangement willingly, she pointed out, as did your father. His eyes held hers. Alliances are rarely about preference, are they? Before she could respond, the ceremony commenced. Through the ritual words and symbolic gestures, Mila remained outwardly composed while her mind raced. When their hands were bound with the traditional silver cord, Zale's fingers were warm against hers, his touch unexpectedly gentle at the reception that followed. Zale remained by her side as protocol demanded, though they barely spoke. She observed how others approached him cautiously, respectfully, but never warmly. They fear what they don't understand, he said quietly. Noticing her observation, and what should I understand about you? Mila asked Dotsa, considered her for a moment, that I am neither the villain of their whispers, nor the savior your father presents me as. I am simply a man with my own purposes, which include me, apparently, which now include you, he corrected, though not in the way you might fear. Later, as they departed for his estate on the colony's outskirts, Mila watched her childhood home recede through the transport window. Beside her, Zale remained silent, the space between them filled with unspoken questions and the daunting reality of their new connection, relationship forged from necessity rather than desire, yet tinged with an unexpected current that Mila couldn't quite name but already feared she might not be able to resist. Zale's estate surprised. Mila, with its understated elegance, nestled against the colony's protective dome wall. The architecture blended human design with subtle alien. Aesthetics curved archways and walls that seemed to absorb and reflect light in mesmerizing patterns. Your quarters are in the east wing, Zale. informed her as a service droid collected her belongings. You'll find everything arranged for your comfort. Separate quarters. Mila couldn't hide her surprise. A flicker of amusement crossed his face. Did you expect me to force intimacy upon an unwilling partner? Our arrangement may be political, but I have no desire to be a jailer. Something in his tone made her cheeks warm. I didn't mean to imply no apologies necessary, he interrupted smoothly. We have time to determine what this marriage will become. The following days established a cautious rhythm. Mornings found Zale already working in his study, trading communications across star systems. Mila explored the estate's extensive gardens, discovering rare specimens from distant planets that she'd only read about in her botanical research. They took evening meals together, their conversation gradually evolving from polite formalities to genuine exchange. Zale possessed knowledge of obscure historical texts and scientific theories that challenged and intrigued her. How did you gain access to the Andromeda archives? She asked one evening. Those texts are restricted to highest-level scholars. Zale's expression remained neutral. Exile teaches one to navigate unconventional paths. Was it worth it? Leaving everything behind? His amber eyes studied her. I didn't leave, Mila. I was driven out. Before she could press further, the estate's security system chimed. Zale frowned, checking the monitor. Counselor Bracken, he murmured. Unexpected. Mila tensed. Bracken had been her father's chief rival for years and had once courted her aggressively, despite her clear disinterest. When Bracken entered, his gaze immediately fixed on Mila with uncomfortable intensity. What a charming domestic scene, he remarked with false warmth. The colony whispers about this unusual match, but seeing you together, ... fascinating. Through veiled comments, Bracken implied knowledge of Zale's past disgrace, while suggesting Mila had been sacrificed to a political necessity. With each barb, Zale remained composed, but Mila noticed his fingers tightening incrementally around his glass. You've always had exotic tastes, haven't you, Mila? Bracken said, his gaze lingering on Zale's purple markings. Though I wonder if you know exactly what bloodlines you've tied yourself to. Before Mila could respond, Zale stood, his movement so fluid it seemed almost predatory. I believe you've forgotten yourself. Counselor, he said, his voice dangerously soft. My wife deserves respect in her home, regardless of your history with her father. The tension crackled between them until Bracken finally smiled thinly. Merely concerned for an old friend's daughter? No offense intended. After Bracken's departure, silence hung between them. You defended me, Mila, said finally. Zell's expression softened slightly. We may not have chosen each other, but we are bound now. That means something to me. That night, Mila couldn't sleep. Restless, she wandered to the garden and discovered Zale kneeling beside a small pool, his hands tracing patterns in the water that caused it to glow with bioluminescence. It's a meditation practice, he explained without turning. My mother taught me. Your mother was. Of the Lyra system, he confirmed, where this is as natural as breathing. Sitting beside him, Mila watched the hypnotic patterns. Will you teach me? Their fingers met in the glowing water, and the unexpected contact sent warmth spreading through her arm. When Zale looked up, the reflection cast ethereal light across his features, highlighting the purple markings that traced from his temples down his neck and disappeared beneath his clothing. Staring, he observed quietly, I've never seen markings like yours before. Hesitantly, she reached toward his face. He remained perfectly still as her fingertips lightly traced the pattern on his temple. His skin was unexpectedly warm, almost vibrating with energy beneath her touch. They extend across my back, he said, his voice lower than before. Part of my heritage. Mila became acutely aware of their proximity, of the night's silence surrounding them, of how his eyes had darkened to molten gold, when he slowly raised his hand to mirror her gesture, tracing her cheekbone with gentle fingers. She didn't pull away. This arrangement isn't what either of us would have chosen, he murmured. But perhaps it needn't be the prison you feared. His hand dropped away, leaving her skin tingling. With graceful movement, he rose. Good night, Mila. Watching him disappear into the house, Mila remained by the glowing pool, her heartbeat unsteady and her thoughts in disarray. The husband she had been determined to keep at a distance was becoming increasingly difficult to resist. Not because of duty or obligation, but because Zale Corvin was revealing himself to be a man unlike any she had known before. 3 weeks into their marriage, Mila found herself in Zal's private library searching for information about his past. Despite their growing companionship, he remained guarded about the events that led to his exile. The colony archives had been suspiciously purged of details. Hidden behind astronomical texts, she discovered a sealed record cylinder, the kind used for legal proceedings. Her fingers hesitated over the activation panel. Curiosity is not a sin. Zale's voice came from the doorway, startling her, though perhaps asking might have been simpler. Mila straightened, refusing to appear guilty. Would you have answered honestly? Try me. She held his gaze. Why were you exiled? Zale approached, taking the cylinder from her hands, officially for theft of proprietary navigation algorithms and selling them to competitor systems. He activated the cylinder, projecting fragmented records. Unofficially for discovering your father and Counselor Bracken had been selling classified colonial defense coordinates. Mila stared at the evidence floating before her: partial transmission records, financial trails. My father framed you. When I confronted him, exile was the merciful option offered. Zale's expression remained neutral. The alternative was an accident during routine maintenance. And now you've married his daughter, Mila whispered. Is this revenge? Something flashed in Zale's eyes. If I wanted revenge, I would have exposed him years ago when I established my trading routes. This marriage was his proposal: protection through alliance, and you accepted because... Zale deactivated the cylinder, plunging them into dimmer light. Perhaps I was curious about the daughter who rejected 3 prestigious suitors and spent her time studying plants rather than politics. Before Mila could respond, an urgent communication alert sounded. Zale frowned at the message. The lunar settlement needs immediate medical supplies. Their transport was damaged in the asteroid belt. My research, Mila realized. The pollen extract I've been developing could stabilize their patients until help arrives. Hours later, they were aboard Zale's personal ship bound for the lunar outpost. Mila watched in fascination as Zale piloted through the asteroid field with remarkable precision, his hands moving across the controls with practiced ease. You navigate differently, she observed, not using the standard colonial patterns. My mother's people sense gravitational fluctuations, he explained. Useful for avoiding objects' conventional sensors, miss? At the settlement, Mila administered her experimental treatment, while Zale coordinated with local officials, working. Together, they moved in surprising harmony, anticipating each other's needs without words. When the crisis stabilized, the settlement administrator insisted they remain overnight, as honored guests the solar radiation storm would make return travel dangerous. They were shown to a single modest chamber. I can find alternative arrangements, Zale offered, noting Mila's hesitation at the single sleeping platform. No, she found herself saying, it's fine. Later, with the small room illuminated only by the glow of the radiation storm through the reinforced windows, they lay side by side, a careful distance maintained between them. Thank you for bringing me, Mila said into the silence. My research would have remained theoretical otherwise. You saved lives today, Zale replied. Your father underestimates your potential. Mila turned toward him. In the storm's purple-tinged light, Zale's markings seemed to pulse gently. Why did you really agree to this marriage? He met her gaze. Perhaps I tired of solitude. Is that the only reason? Zale's hand moved slowly, giving her time to pull away as his fingers brushed her cheek. No, the touch ignited something that had been building between them for weeks. Mila leaned into his palm, her breath catching as his thumb traced her lower lip. This changes things, she whispered. Only if you wish it to, he answered. Instead of replying, Mila closed the distance between them, pressing her lips to his. Zale remained still for one heartbeat before responding, his arms drawing her against him with restrained intensity. The kiss deepened, his unique warmth enveloping her as his hands explored with gentle reverence. Mila traced the patterns on his skin, following the purple markings that extended down his neck and across his chest. Beneath her touch, they seemed to illuminate faintly, responsive to her exploration. They react to emotion, he murmured against her throat, sending shivers across her skin. Clothing gave way to discovery as the storm cast shifting light across their entwined forms. Zale's touch was both gentle and confident, awakening sensations Mila had never experienced. When they finally joined, connection transcended physical pleasure. Something primal and profound passed between them, as though the barriers that had kept them separate dissolved completely. Afterward, lying in his arms as the storm gradually subsided, Mila watched the play of light across his features. "What happens now?" she asked. Cell-traced patterns along her spine. "That depends on what you want this marriage to become," said. "If my father discovers your true purpose." His protection came with conditions. His expression grew serious. "Then, we will face that challenge together if that's what you choose." As dawn broke over the lunar settlement, Mila realized their return to the colony would test this fragile new connection. What began as duty had transformed into desire, but desire alone might not withstand the forces that had once driven them. Apart forces that still moved in shadow, waiting to separate them once more. Their return to the colony brought a subtle but significant shift. Though they maintained separate quarters for appearances, Mila often found herself in Zale's bed, their nights filled with whispered conversations and passionate discoveries. During daylight, they moved in a delicate dance of public formality and private intimacy. 3 months into their marriage, Mila received an unexpected summons to her family estate. Alone. "Your father specifically requested you come without your husband," Nessa explained, delivering the message with obvious discomfort. Zale observed her preparation from the doorway. "You're concerned? Wouldn't you be?" Mila fastened her formal tunic. "He never requests my presence without purpose. I could accompany you regardless of his wishes." Mila shook her head. "We need to understand his intentions." Zale crossed the room, adjusting her collar with gentle hands that lingered at her neck. "Be cautious. Your father doesn't make moves without calculating every outcome." At the Stellaris estate, Mila found not only her father waiting, but also Counselor Bracken and 2 other senior colony officials. Their expressions confirmed her suspicions this was an ambush. "Daughter," her father greeted without warmth. "We have concerns about your situation." "My marriage, you mean?" Mila remained standing despite the offered seat. Bracken stepped forward. "We've received disturbing reports about Zale Corvin's activities in the outer systems. Trading with restricted territories, potentially endangering colonial security." "Convenient accusations," Mila observed. "Much like those that led to his exile years ago." Her father's eyes narrowed. "This is different. We have evidence." He activated a projection showing Zale's ship docking at an unmarked station in neutral territory, transferring cargo to vessels with unidentifiable markings, supplying medical equipment to refugee settlements, Mila explained, recognizing the location from Zale's recent mission logs. "Settlements your policies have abandoned." "You defend him quickly," Bracken noted. "Perhaps too quickly for an arranged marriage." Her father's expression hardened. "The Corvin bloodline carries genetic anomalies. His non-human ancestry goes beyond the Lyran connection we initially vetted. His maternal lineage traces to the prescribed Severan system." The implication struck Mila like a physical blow. The Severans were ancient enemies of the Colonial Federation, their physiological differences feared rather than understood. "You knew?" she realized. "You knew his heritage when you arranged this marriage." "He suspected," her father corrected. "Now we have confirmation. His Severan traits are becoming more prominent, the extended markings, the enhanced abilities. He cannot be trusted, yet you've bound me to him. A calculated risk. We needed his trade routes, but we required someone inside his household." Her father's voice softened manipulatively. "You've done well, Mila. Your duty to the colony is fulfilled, and we need you to provide access to his communications network." Mila felt cold anger crystallizing within her. "You want me to betray my husband?" "You can't betray what was never truly yours," Bracken interjected. "The marriage was political. Your attachment is unfortunate but irrelevant, and if I refuse," her father's expression turned dangerous, "then you choose an alien over your own kind. The consequences would extend beyond you. Zale Corvin's protected status would be immediately revoked. Mila maintained her composure through the remainder of the meeting, accepting the data cylinder they provided with surveillance software. On the transport ride home, she examined her options with clinical precision. Her training as a stellarist had prepared her for political maneuvering. But nothing had prepared her for the conflict now, tearing her apart. Entering their home, she found Zale in the garden beneath the artificial twilight, the purple markings on his skin glowing faintly as he tended to the alien flora. "Your meeting went as expected?" he asked without looking up. Mila approached slowly. "They know about your Severan ancestry." His hand stilled over the luminescent plant. "I suspected they might discover it eventually. Why didn't you tell me?" Finally faced her, his amber eyes reflecting uncertainty she'd never seen before. "The Severan are feared because they're misunderstood. I am 1/4 Severan enough to inherit certain traits, not enough to trigger the genetic modifications they fear. They want me to spy on you," Mila admitted, holding out the data cylinder. "To compromise your communications?" Zal examined the device without touching it. "And what have you decided?" "They threaten to revoke your protected status if I refuse." "That doesn't answer my question." Mila closed the distance between them, taking his hands in hers. The purple markings pulsed beneath her touch, responding to his elevated emotions. "They arranged our marriage because they feared you," she realized. "Not because they wanted your trade routes. They needed control. And now they fear us both." Mila's voice strengthened with resolve. "Because I'm no longer their obedient daughter. Whatever happens next, we face it together." Zale pulled her into his embrace, his forehead touching hers in the intimate gesture of his mother's people. "Together means sharing everything, Mila. There's more you need to know about my past, and about the future they fear." That night, as colony security forces began mobilizing under Bracken's command, Zale revealed the full truth of his heritage, and the real reason behind his return to the Colonia revelation that would force Mila to make her final choice between the world she'd known and the man who had transformed her understanding of love, loyalty, and belonging. Dawn broke over the colony with an artificial brilliance that failed to warm the chill settling in Mila's bones. Zale's revelations had kept them awake through the night, the true history of the Severan people. Not conquerors as colonial history painted them, but refugees from a dying world. Their physiological differences, including the ability to share thoughts through touch, had made them targets of fear rather than subjects of understanding. "The Colony Council has been systematically eliminating those with Severan ancestry," Zale explained. "My return wasn't just about clearing my name. I needed to gather evidence of their eugenic policies." Mila processed this against everything she'd been taught. "In our marriage?" "Initially, a strategic position," he admitted. "But it became something I never anticipated." Before she could respond, the estate's security system chimed an urgent warning. Surveillance drones circled the perimeter. "They're moving faster than expected," Zell noted grimly. "We need to release your evidence publicly," Mila decided. "Broadcast to all sectors simultaneously." Working with practiced efficiency, they compiled the damning files records of disappearances, falsified medical reports, genetic screening programs disguised as health initiatives. Zale's trading network had spent years gathering testimonies from survivors and documents smuggled by sympathetic officials. As they prepared the transmission, the security perimeter breached. Estate defenses would buy them minutes, not hours. "We won't both make it to the broadcast center," Zale realized. "They'll be watching all approaches." Mila's botanical knowledge provided the solution. The underground irrigation tunnels? They connect to the central environmental systems. They'll be heavily guarded. "Not all of them," Mila countered. "The northern junction is considered unstable. No one uses it." She met his gaze steadily. "I can get through while you provide a diversion." Zale's expression tightened with concern. "It's too dangerous. It's our only chance." After a brief, fierce embrace, they separated Zale, taking their fastest transport in a conspicuous departure toward the spaceport, while Mila slipped into the garden's maintenance hatch with the data cylinders secured against her chest. The tunnels were claustrophobic, designed for maintenance drones rather than humans. Mila navigated by memory from colony schematics, aware that security forces would already be swarming the estate above. When she reached the environmental control center, She used her family access codes not yet deactivated to enter the broadcasting system. Across the colony, screens flickered as the transmission overrode regular programming. Evidence of the Council's systematic persecution appeared alongside testimonies from victims. Mila added her own message. I am Mila Dolores Corvin, and I speak to you with the truth our leaders have denied. For generations, we have been taught to fear difference rather than embrace it. Today I stand with my husband against injustice, not out of duty or obligation, but from choice and love. As her face broadcast across the colony, security forces surrounded the control center. The door would hold briefly, but capture was inevitable. She completed the transmission sequence just as breaching charges detonated. Mila raised her hands as armed officers poured in, led by Bracken himself. Mila Stellaris, you are charged with treason against the colony, he announced, satisfaction evident in his voice. That's not my name anymore, she replied calmly. Bracken's smug expression faltered as alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. The lights flickered, then stabilized with an unfamiliar purple tint. What have you done? He demanded. She kept you occupied, Zale's voice came through the communication system. While I implemented the contingency we planned, screens throughout the control center showed Zale at the colony's central power distribution hub. The diversion to the spaceport had been exactly that, a diversion. Colonial security codes have been reset, he continued. Evidence of the Council's crimes has been transmitted to every settlement in the system and to the Federal Oversight Committee. Your violations of federal genetic diversity protections are now very public knowledge. As Bracken spluttered in fury, the facility doors reopened. Federal peacekeepers entered, their authority superseding colonial security. Counselor Bracken, Counselor Stellaris, and all senior council members are to be detained pending investigation, the commander announced. 3 days later, Mila stood with Zale on the observation deck overlooking the colony. Federal investigators had moved swiftly, uncovering decades of abuse and discrimination. Her father and Bracken faced serious charges, while interim leadership prepared for the colony's first open elections. What happens now? Mila asked, echoing her question from that night on the lunar settlement. Zale took her hand, his purple markings glowing softly in the artificial twilight, where their skin touched. She felt the unique connection they shared, the Severan ability to transmit emotion through contact, which had grown stronger between them with each passing day. Now we have choices, he said. My work beyond the colony continues helping Severan descendants find safety, building bridges between worlds. But I would never presume Mila silenced him with a kiss. I'm coming with you. My research could help those communities, and she placed his hand against her abdomen. Our child will need to understand both sides of their heritage. Zale's expression transformed with wonder. Through their connected hands, she felt his overwhelming joy and love. Our child will be a bridge between worlds, he whispered, just as we have become. Beneath the vast dome that separated them from the stars, they stood together, not bound by duty or forced by circumstance, but united by choice. Their journey had begun with reluctance and resentment, transformed through understanding and patience, and culminated in a love that transcended the artificial boundaries of colony politics and prejudice. That night, as they lay entwined in their shared bed, the purple markings on Zale's skin glowed with contentment, casting gentle light across Mila's features. His fingers traced patterns over her skin, where, faintly, the slightest hint of purple had begun to appear, not from genetics, but from the unique bond they shared, a physical manifestation of their connection. The markings, Mila whispered in surprise, examining her wrist where the delicate pattern had emerged. A Severan bond sign, Zal explained with wonder, rare even among full-blooded couples. It means our connection goes beyond the physical, a true merging of spirits. As the colony around them began its painful but necessary transformation, they held each other in the darkness. Two people who had found belonging in each other's arms when their worlds had offered only obligation and isolation. What had begun as a reluctant arrangement had blossomed into something. Neither could have imagined a constellation of devotion that would guide them through whatever challenges awaited. Beyond the colony's protective dome, out among the stars where their future together waited to be written.